Namaskar students. Hope you are hale and hearty, taking care of your health and your studies. My name is Jyotsna and I am from Education Department, Chandigarh. When right to education became fundamental right, it was a milestone in itself, making free and compulsory education for every child of India till the age of 14. There had been numerous occasions when our educational policies had been updating themselves in order to meet the needs of the global scenario. Even the National Education Policy launched in 2020 focuses on some serious changes to be made in days to come. But where did all this start from? We all know that Britishers came to India and they brought English language to India. They wanted workers and they wanted that these workers knew English so that they could communicate. That's how the modern education system came into being way back in the 19th century. Today's session is going to revolve around the same. We are going to take up chapter number 7 from grade 8 book of Our Past Part 3. The name of the chapter is Civilizing the Native and Educating the Nation. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Civilizing the Native, Educating the Nation will help understand the implication British rule had on the lives of students. The British in India wanted not only territorial conquest and control over revenues, they also felt that they had a cultural mission. They had to civilize the natives, change their customs and values. Let's start how the British saw education. The current system of education with its Western style and content was introduced and founded by the British in 20th century, following recommendations by Macaulay. It was earlier originated by William Adam in 1830. He came to Calcutta to know about the structure of Indian education started by Christian missionaries. British records show that indigenous education was widespread in the 18th century, with a school for every temple, mosque, or village in most regions of the country. The subjects taught including reading, writing, arithmetic, theology, law, astronomy, metaphysics, ethics, medical science, and religion. The schools were attended by students representative of classes of society. But scholars have questioned the validity of such an argument. They argue that proponents of indigenous education fail to recognize the importance of the widespread use of printed books in the West since the 16th century, which led to a remarkable advancement of knowledge. Printed books were not used in Indian schools till the 1820s or even later. There were institutions such as Gresham's College in London that encouraged scientific learning. In fact, there were a number of such academic and scientific societies in England, often supported by Puritan and nonconformist merchants, the like of which probably did not exist in India. The educational ideas of Lord Macaulay are known as Macaulay's Minute. Lord Macaulay comes to India on 10th June 1834 as member of Law East India Company. Bentinck appointed him head of Public Information Committee. He agreed with his idea of Charles Grant. He too believed that only English education can provide knowledge of Indian people. So let's take up the tradition of Orientalism now. In 1783, William Jones arrived in Calcutta. As we already discussed, that he was appointed as a junior judge at the Supreme Court. Jones was a linguist who had studied Greek and Latin at Oxford and knew French, English, Arabic, and Persian. At Calcutta, he learnt the subtitles of Sanskrit language, grammar, and poetry from Pandits. He also studied ancient Indian texts on law, philosophy, religion, politics, morality, arithmetic, medicine, and the other sciences. Henry Thomas Clobook and Nathaniel Halhed were also interested in the ancient Indian heritage to master the Indian languages and to translate Sanskrit and Persian works into English. Jones, along with them, set up the Asiatic Society of Bengal and started a journal called Asiatic Researches. Jones and Colebrook felt that Indian civilization had attained its glory in the ancient past but had subsequently declined. To understand India better, it was necessary to discover the sacred and legal texts that were produced in the ancient period. Jones and Colebrook went on discovering ancient texts, understanding their meaning, translating them, and making their findings known to others. The project would help Indians rediscover their own heritage and understand the lost glories of their past. The company officials felt that institutions should encourage the study of ancient Indian texts and Sanskrit and Persian literature and poetry. Hindus and Muslims should learn what they were already familiar with and what they valued and treasured. In 1781, a madrasa was set up in Calcutta to promote the study of Arabic, Persian, and Islamic law. And the Hindu College was established in Banaras in 1791 to encourage the study of ancient Sanskrit texts that would be useful for the administration of the country. Now, there was this grave error of the East. The British officials started criticizing the Orientalist view of learning and said that knowledge of the East was full of errors and unscientific thoughts. Eastern literature was non serious and light hearted. James Mill was one of those who attacked the Orientalists. The aim of education should be to teach what was useful and practical. So, Indians should be familiar with the scientific and technical advances that the West had made. Thomas Babington Macaulay saw India as an uncivilized country that needed to be civilized. He urged that the British government in India should stop wasting public money in promoting Oriental learning, for it was of no practical use. Macaulay thought English language would help Indians to read some of the finest literature the world had produced, make them aware of the developments in Western science and philosophy. The English Education Act of 1835 was introduced and English was made the medium of instruction for higher education. English textbooks began to be produced for schools. Now let's take up education for commerce. In 1854, the Court of Directors of East India Company in London sent an educational dispatch to the Governor General in India. It was issued by Charles Wood, the president of Board of Control of the company, known as Wood's Dispatch. It draws an outline of the educational policy that was to be followed in India and emphasized on the practical benefits of a system of European learning as opposed to Oriental knowledge. European learning would enable Indians to recognize the advantage of expansion of trade and commerce and the importance of developing the resources of the country. By adopting European ways of life, their taste and desires would change. European learning would improve the moral character of Indians. The British introduced several measures following the 1854 dispatch. Education departments of the government were set up to extend control over all matters regarding education. Steps were taken to establish a system of university education. In 1857, universities were being established in Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay. Attempts were also made to bring about changes within the system of school education. So, what happened to the local schools? The report of William Adam. In 1830s, William Adam toured the districts of Bengal and Bihar and had been asked by a company to report on the progress of education in vernacular schools. According to the report presented by Adam, over 1 lakh Pathshalas were present in Bengal and Bihar with no more than 20 students each. These institutions were set up by wealthy people or the local community. The education system was flexible with no fixed fee, no printed books, no separate school building, no benches or chairs, no blackboards, no system of separate classes, no roll call registers, no annual examinations, and no regular timetable. Classes were held under a banyan tree, in the corner of a village shop or temple, or at Guru's home. School fees depended on the income of the parents. The rich had to pay more than the poor. The Guru decided what to teach, orally in accordance with the needs of the students. Students were sat together in one place, and the Guru interacted separately with the groups of children with different levels of learning. This flexible system was suited to local needs. During the harvest time, classes were not held. The Pathshala started once again when the crops had been cut and stored. Now, new routines and new rules came to the forefront. The company was concerned primarily with higher education. After 1854, the company decided to improve the system of vernacular education by introducing order within the system, imposing routines, establishing rules, ensuring regular inspections. The company appointed a number of government pundits, gave them charge of 4 to 5 schools. The task of the pandit was to visit the pathshalas and try and improve the standard of teaching. Each guru was asked to submit periodic report and take classes according to the regular timetable. Teaching was based on textbook and learning was tested through a system of annual examination. Students were asked to pay a regular fee, attend regular classes, sit on fixed seats, and obey the new rules of discipline. Pathshalas, which accepted the new rules, were supported through government grants. The consequences of new rules and routines was earlier children from poor peasant families had been able to go to pathshalas since the timetable was flexible. The new system demanded regular attendance even during harvest time when children of poor families had to work in the fields. This was a huge problem for them. The agenda for a national education. Before the British officials, many thinkers from different parts of India began to talk of the need for a wider spread of education. Some Indians felt that Western education would help modernize India and urged the British to open more schools, colleges, and universities and spend more money on education. There were other Indians who reacted against Western education. Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore were two such individuals. English education has enslaved us, according to Mahatma Gandhi. Western civilization created a sense of inferiority in the minds of Indians. It made the Indians perceive it as superior and destroyed the pride they had in their own culture. Indians educated in these institutions began admiring British rule. Mahatma Gandhi wanted an education that could help Indians recover their sense of dignity and self respect. During the national movement, he urged students to leave educational institutions in order to show to the British that Indians were no longer willing to be enslaved. Education in English distanced Indians from their own social surroundings and made them strangers in their own lands. Mahatma Gandhi said that education ought to develop a person's mind and soul. Literacy did not count as education. As nationalist sentiment spread, other thinkers also began thinking of a system of national education which would be radically different from that set up by British. Tagore's Abode of Peace. Rabindranath Tagore started Shantiniketan in 1901. During his childhood days, he found schools suffocating and oppressive. So, after growing up, he wanted to establish a school where the child was happy, free, and creative and able to explore his own thoughts and desires. He felt that childhood ought to be a time of self learning outside the rigid and restricting discipline of the schooling system set up by the British. According to Tagore, the existing schools killed the natural desire of the child to be creative along with his sense of wonder. Tagore said that creative learning could be encouraged only within a natural environment. Gandhiji was against Western civilization and its worship of machines and technology. Tagore, on the other hand, wanted to combine elements of modern Western civilization with the best Indian tradition. He emphasized the need to teach science and technology at Shantiniketan, along with art, music, and dance. Many individuals and thinkers were thinking of a way as to how the national educational system could be fashioned. Some wanted changes within the system set up by the British and felt that the system could be extended to include wider sections of people. Others urged that alternative systems be created so that people were educated into a culture that was truly national. Let's have a quick look at the points we had covered today. So, here are the focal points of today's session. We first took up as to how the British saw Indian education system. Then we talked about the tradition of Orientalism. After that we talked about the grave errors of the East, wherein they thought that the existing system was of no use. Then we talked about the education, the purpose of which was solely commerce. Moving on, we talked about what happened to the local schools once the English system came in. In the end, we talked about the ideas of the leaders on English as medium of education. All right, let's get to know if these statements are true or false. Mahatma Gandhi was a promoter of English language. False. William Jones had a respect for ancient culture. True. Thomas Macaulay thought that European education was necessary in India. True. William Carey had an appointment as a Supreme Court judge. This is a false statement. Alright, on your screens you can see two columns. You have to match the columns. Alright, linguist is a person who knows and studies several languages. Very good. Orientalists. Orientalists are people who have scholarly knowledge of the language and culture of Asia. Munshi, a person who can read, write, and teach Persian. Vernacular, a local language. Wood's Dispatch, an order brought from England to India by Wood. Pathshalas, a place of learning. Alright, now let's take up some questions. There are some statements on your screens, and along with that there are 4 options. You have to pick the correct option. William Jones was a linguist because he had studied Greek and Latin, he knew French and English, he had learnt Persian, or all of these. Yes, the correct option is option D, all of these, because William Jones had studied Greek and Latin, he knew French and English, and he had learnt Persian as well. Moving on, who set up Asiatic Society of Bengal? William Jones, Henry Thomas Colebrook, Nathaniel Halhed, or all of these? Yes, the Asiatic Society of Bengal was set up by all of these. William Jones, Henry Thomas Colebrook, and Nathaniel Halhed were all a part of it. Madrasa was set up in Calcutta in the year 1750, 1761, 1771, 1781. Madrasa was set up in Calcutta in 1781. According to whom English education had enslaved Indians? Rabindranath Tagore, Mahatma Gandhi, Subhash Chandra Bose, or Acharya Vinoba Bhave? It was Mahatma Gandhi who said that English education had enslaved Indians. The Education Act was introduced in the year 1850, 1835, 1910 or 1900. Education Act was introduced in 1835. Asiatic Researches, the journal, was not started by William Jones, Henry Thomas Colebrook, Nathaniel Hallhead, William Carey. Asiatic Researchers was not started by William Carey. When Nelson Mandela said that education is the most powerful weapon with which you can change the world, he was apt. Education helps you to know the right and the wrong. We get to know what is reasoned and what is not. With this, I sign off today. We'll be back with many more videos. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. Namaskar.